Here to give us his reaction on how political leaders should be handling the situation is Ken Blackwell, the former mayor of Cincinnati. Ken, when we look at what's going on across the country, you recently wrote an op-ed about the duty of city leaders right now to protect lives and private property. Can you speak a little bit about what you were trying to say in that op-ed?
Essentially, mayors and local leaders have a responsibility to create an environment where there is neighborhood and public safety. In front of us, we are seeing cities across the country that are in ruins, and we see that people who are in fear. And this is being compounded by the coupling of COVID-19 shutdown as well as uh, violence by domestic terrorists, petty criminals, and violent protesters. The first order of business for mayors and local officials is to, in fact, create public safety.
And when this was going down just over the past couple of nights, a lot of people were asking where President Trump was, whether or not he could get more involved in this situation. But when we look at what's going on right now, how much power does the federal government have to get involved, and how much of it should be based on state and local leaders?
But look, the president can't quell the sort of violence that we just saw on your screen from the Oval Office, nor can governors do it from the governor's mansion. That mayors and local officials are at the tip of the spear. That's where it starts. That's who is most accountable for making sure that police forces and public safety officials are utilizing the best practices, smart policies to make sure that people are safe. Look, and this is not an either or situation. We don't have to choose between constitutional rights of assembly and free speech versus feeling safe. We can use public policy tools and behaviors and practices that will allow folks to protest in peaceful and orderly ways, and at the same time guarantee public safety, whether that's the use of curfews or public locations that are away from commercial areas where this sort of violence that we're seeing now being perpetrated in large measure by domestic terrorists.
And when we talk about that issue too, because I think it is very important, is that this idea of domestic terrorists have infiltrated this movement, and no longer are we talking about George Floyd. No longer are we talking about police reforms. So to some degree, I almost want to ignore what's going on and get to the root of this issue a little bit more. I don't want to let the hijackers get all the fame, if you will. So when we're talking about this protest that's going on, it's coming back to the idea that there are systemic problems within our policing system. Do you think that there are reforms that can be made, coming back to the original point of this protest to begin with?
Well, let's just talk about it, because I was one of the early voices to say that these four police officers should be fired, arrested, and vigorously prosecuted. And look at what has happened when we, in fact, see good people turning towards one another, not on one another. We now have seen that these folks have been fired. One has been arrested. There is a criminal justice legal process being structured that will, in fact, give us that vigorous prosecution that those crimes deserve.
So when it comes to
Deserve.
this situation, is it one of those things where maybe it's not the system necessarily that is flawed, but we're following through on the system, making sure that the laws we have in place are followed through on? Is that really what we should be focusing on?
Look, 99% of police officers are good folk. You have 1% that are bad apples, bad actors that must be dealt with quickly and comprehensively. We are in a process where we've seen a reduction of police assaults against Black citizens.
Hmm.
We haven't eliminated it. One of the things that we know, as Abraham Lincoln said, America is not a perfect union, but it is a perfectible union. We are great because good people have come together to do great things, not great governments. Great governments don't produce great societies. Good people do. That's what we have to do. We have to call people to come together to make sure that we speak with a voice for peace and justice.
I mean, I don't think I could one-up Abraham Lincoln. That's a great way to end this. That was very well said, and I think that's something that a lot of our viewers should take with us moving forward as well. Ken Blackwell, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Always good to be with you, sir.